Okay, let's go. We're talking about World War II. Why was World War II so popular now, many, many years afterwards? Because it was a very popular war, and all the wars we've been in since that time have been very unpopular. During World War II, every man, woman, and child in the United States was involved in the war effort. Every man, woman, and child. When a child was old enough to talk, they got involved in propaganda some way or another as far as supporting the soldiers that were in the field. But what I want to do is I want to take you back. Who made your elevator today? You rode today? Elevator.
Oh, you told me this.
Otis elevator. In 1928, there was a World's Fair in Chicago, and the theme was "It's the Vision of Tomorrow." I was 4 years old. My father took me, and what happened was that Otis was trying to convince people that that elevator was safe. In 1928, no building in the United States was higher than 2 or 3 stories because you had to walk up. So he had this wonderful idea, he got a patent on it, and so on and so forth. And what he did in the World's Fair in Chicago, which I always remember, I was 4 years old, was he built a steeple, a scaffolding up 5 stories. They would pull him all the way up, and then he would cut the rope. And everyone thought he could smash it down. And of course he stopped, and he came down very gently and so forth. That was the start of Otis Elevator, which are all over the world, and it's something that you can take home that has nothing to do with World War II, but it's kind of interesting. And that was 28. Now let me jump 10 years, 1938. 1938, the Japanese sunk the Panay on the Yangtze River in China. Hitler started all his rampage in Europe. And where was it in the United States as far as publicity? It was on the back page. On the back page. We were an isolationist country. War was somebody else's problem. We have the ocean, the Atlantic and the Pacific. We're safe. Pearl Harbor changed that overnight. I was a freshman in college. The first thing we asked each other is, what the hell's Pearl Harbor? No one had any idea where Pearl Harbor was. And of course, instantaneously, some of my friends enlisted the next day. Some of them went to Canada because they wanted to fly, and so on and so forth. But the propaganda war that the Hitlers before that and the Japanese and so on and so forth suddenly was totally negated in the United States because of Pearl Harbor. I told you I was a freshman in college. Colleges immediately went on the 3-semester-a-year basis. So I stayed in school, and in September 1942 I had 2 years of college, even though I'd really been in college only a year and 3 months. So I enlisted in the Army, and everybody who was in the Army who had an IQ of more than 120, they sent back to college in uniform. So next year I'm back at Mississippi State College in Mississippi, up in Hattiesburg, Mississippi. And then as quickly as it started, it got stopped. So they decided they didn't need all these educated people and so forth. So I was sent to the 69th Division in Hattiesburg, Mississippi. 20,000. And on day 1, I saw this sign on the bulletin board. Volunteers needed for a very hazardous duty. You can't be over 28, you can't be married, you have to be able to sign the last will, testament, and so forth. So I said, what's all this about? They said, we don't know. So I finally went from my company to battalion, to regiment, to division, and they said, well, you have to pass physical mental tests. So for the next 2 weeks, I went through Ranger hell. But as I said, I was a teenager, so it didn't really bother me very much. But at the end of the 2 weeks' time, they said, this is graduation day. So they set up this tent outside, very dark inside, and 20 people out of 20,000 are not qualified. So there's 20 people in this line, and somehow or another I got to be number 1. So I walked inside, and here's the meanest looking subject I ever saw in my life sitting behind a desk. He says, neighbor, go, sit down. I sat down. He says, neighbor, go, Put your hands on the table. We don't trust anyone in the Rangers. It's the first time I heard the word Rangers. Put your hand on the table. I go like that. I pulled the knife out and stuck it right between my hands. I was absolutely petrified. I almost peed my pants. But I never lost eye contact. He said, "Neighbor, go, you're in." So I went outside and I said, "I wonder what the hell are those people when that knife comes out." The guy behind me, when the knife came out, he went running. And I watched all 20 of them, and only 11 of us passed. So now we're in the Rangers. Of course, everyone knows the story about D-Day. Patton was not in Europe on D-Day. He had the Phantom Third Army, which was in North of England. They had wooden tanks. They had everything imaginable to make the Germans think they were going to attack Calais rather than where we said D-Day. D-Day was an awful place. It was totally disorganized. You never knew who your friends were. You never knew who the enemies were. Someone knows we got through it. And on D+14, Patton shows up. And his rule was, no son of a bitch ever won a war by dying for his country. The way you win a war is let some other son of a bitch die for his country. And we genuinely believe that. So we fought our way with Patton. We were kind of like his eyes and ears. That was long before we had all the reconnaissance capabilities, drones, and so on we have now. He wanted to know what the hell was in front of him. And that was our job. And so we were very frequently miles in front of that arms and so forth. Very interesting work. When we got to Paris, we thought we were going to liberate Paris. We got the word to go around Paris so the French were trying to liberate their own side. And that's exactly what happened. The French, who had hardly been fighting at all, went triumphantly into Paris. And so on. So whenever we thought that was fair, no one thought that was very bad. So now the war is going with very high casualty rate. And we're thinking now of getting into Germany. So Patton had two choices where the Third Army was to get into Germany. One was going through Luxembourg, and the other one was going through Arlon, Belgium, which is north of Luxembourg. Why he chose Arlon, Belgium, I have no idea, but nevertheless, someone told me it was politically smarter than going through Luxembourg. So we get into Arlon, Belgium, and we pitch our puck tents. And the second night, someone knocks on the door and said, "Well, you're here, and we're here, and we'd like to challenge you to a game of football." We said, "How come you look so young and healthy and well off and so on and so forth?" They said, "When Belgium surrendered to the Germans, they dissolved the Army Navy Air Force. Good boys and everything's fine." He said, "Okay, we'll play you football. When do you want to play?" "We'll play on Thursday." He said, "We want to play on Sunday." So someplace we found a football. And in those days, the single wing formation was the only formation, this being for the team. And we got fairly good at running and so on and so forth. When we walked into Arlon Stadium, which was packed with 6,000 or 7,000 people on Sunday afternoon, we saw the first soccer field we'd ever seen in our life. We soccer field was totally unknown. No one ever seen a soccer ball, no one ever seen a soccer game. We said, "Well, hell, we're here, but you have to explain to us how you play this game." So they talked to us, and we played. They were way ahead at the end of the first quarter. So we said, "Look, here's the gentleman's game. Let's play American football the second half." They said, "Okay, we don't know the rules, but if you tell us how to do it, we'll do it." They did not like blocking and tackling. Blocking and tackling is unknown in soccer. And to charge using your hands, you can't do that hard at all. So they let us alone. We scored 4, 5, 6 touchdowns, and we decided, well, this is really not a very good idea anymore. So we just quit and went all the way to the bar. And 5,000 or 6,000 people did not, they did not forgive us, I might add. Because in France, during World War II, they were starving. They had no food, they had no ice cream, for example, zero ice cream. The Belgians had everything. You buy ice cream in every corner. Well, surrendering had some beneficial benefits. So, the war keeps going on. Now comes the Battle of the Bulge. The Battle of the Bulge was in January. The weather was terrible. It was snowy, icy, very, very cold, and so on and so forth. And my Ranger Battalion went into the Battle of Bulge riding tanks. The first time we got under fire, there were 5 or 6 of us on this tank. We jumped off, and I put my rifle up to shoot, and my rifle stuck to my chin and to my cheek. And the Ranger buddy beside me says, "Just keep firing, neighbor, going, I'll blow on it." And that's exactly what happened. I blew on it, I could pitch my rifle off. So the Battle of Bulge, it was a mess. But Patton's tanks. Of interest that we got is the 3rd Army had 280,000 people. Remember, the infantry division and the armored division was 20,000. That wasn't that many divisions. But we were going east, and he contrived the idea to where suddenly we're all turned north. So 280,000 soldiers going east, now are suddenly going north. And of course, it worked out very well. And then the Battle of the Bulge. We're back now at Christmas time. And right after Christmas, the Battle of the Bulge started and was over with, I think, 62 days, as I recall. So now we're in defensive positions. Being in a defensive position for a Ranger didn't make you any better than anybody else. Overhead fire, overhead fire, artillery, and so on and so forth. It's indiscriminate. Rangers' skills of being on the offense, being on the move, hiding sometimes during the daytime so you can fight at night and that sort of thing. But we were in a defensive position, and the Germans attacked us and overran us. And the battalion commander called on the supporting field artillery battalions that were supporting us to fire at our position. I was close enough that I heard the conversation. And what I heard Colonel Sullivan say was, "God damn it," I said, "fire." And what they were saying, I found out later, was, "Look, we're here to help you, not kill you." But we were dug in, the Germans were not. They fired on our position, and they slaughtered Germans. They absolutely slaughtered Germans. So the next mission was the Battle of Erzberg. And that's who told you about Freer. Your family comes from Freer. That's when his first service in the area of Freer as far as Germany is concerned. We got the orders, the fire orders, and the orders were to cross the Saar River on a combat engineer's platoon bridge, this wide, and a rope, one single rope, and the water was coming over the bridge, and it was well below freezing, but it was enough that these guys did a wonderful job, so no one slipped off. But the last thing the guy said to me as I walked out of the bridge was, he said, "Don't fall off, but we'll try to we'll run a bridge off this one by the Saar River, I'll show it all over the place with one thing." I learned later when I became friends with General Walker, who was the Corps Commander with 20th Corps of the 3rd Army. I might add he became the first commanding general in Korea who got killed on